Welcome to That Annuity Show, the podcast that will make you an expert in explaining annuities to your clients. Give us 30 minutes each week and we'll shave hours from your client presentations. Now, here's your host, Paul Tyler.
Hi, this is Paul Tyler, and welcome to another episode of That Annuity Show. Ramsey, welcome.
Always good to be here.
It's great. We're missing our other two co-hosts, but we have a great guest, really good guest, and a good couple of topics that I can't wait to plumb. Ramsey, do you want to do the honors?
Absolutely. So we have the great honor to be joined today by Dr. Preston D. Cherry, who is a leader in the financial planning space. And I really enjoyed talking to him offline over the course of the last few months. And it was very clear that it was time to bring him on the show. So very glad to have him. Dr. Cherry is a professor at the University of Wisconsin-Green Bay and is also founder and CEO of his own practice, Concurrent Financial Planning, and is also very active on the speaker tour. So Dr. Cherry, a.k.a. Preston, if we can call you, if we may be so bold as to call you Preston.
Yes.
Tell us a bit more about how you got here, how you chose this space, and what do we miss about all the amazing things you've done.
Oh, well, gentlemen, I appreciate you having me on the show. Paul and Ramsey, it's just a pleasure. I watch from afar and I listen, so when I travel, I'm in the car or something like that, I'm tuning up the annuity show. So thanks for having me. So yes, didn't miss too much. I've been in and around the profession for, 15 some odd years now. If I want to really include real undergrad back to 2002, when I really got introduced into the space as a young lad, I guess I could say. I'm still young, but young lad. With 2002, I didn't know financial planning was a thing in 2002. That's when I was in undergrad. I had a mentor there, and he introduced me to financial planning. I always knew money concepts, being in the family household, introduced to money and anything. But as far as financial planning as a profession, I didn't know that was a thing. And so my mentor introduced me to people at Texas Tech, and we took a bus tour out there, and I was introduced to the legacy program at Tech, and that was my first introduction to there. And then, a lot of things happened over those years, and went to grad school in 2006 for the master's, and then I got into the field from there, and did a lot of things in between there. I'm skipping over a lot of things, but I just want to just sum it up. And then went back for the PhD in 2016, and then graduated from there. And now I'm here, own and operate the firm, virtual, and now I'm building a financial planning program at UWGB. Practice is going well, speaking, serving on boards, impacting the profession, and just got a Rolodex of relationships and just having fun with it all.
Yeah, just to take one step back, my copious research from our team of production assistants here tells me you actually had a very early introduction to matching contributions. Is that right?
Yes.
And matching contributions of your pre-401k. Do you want to tell people I think parents play an enormous role, right? And
yes.
Tell us your story.
Yes. Thanks for that, Paul. Absolutely. I mean, even in theory, just families are financial systems, and these can leave lasting imprints on how we matriculate through life with money. And yes, I had me and my sister get allowance. We got allowances when our parents allowed it. Nowadays, people, the young people expect allowances. I was from the old school to where my parents allowed us to live in your house. They allowed you to have a bed. Allowed you to have some air conditioning. But when we did get allowance, they said, we had an old school ledger, and we put cash into this little brown book. I'll never forget it. And they said, if you set aside some of your cash from your allowance, we'll match that. And my parents got married early, 20 and 18, I think it is. They're now married 41 years. And it's amazing that as young as they were, they wanted to change the landscape or the trajectory of the next generation very early. And they said, what we didn't learn, we want to transfer knowledge into our kids, early. And so they wanted that money lesson into it, because they had 401ks and everything like that when, they were coming up. But that was their first introduction into that. And so they were learning on the fly, and they were like, oh, okay, we were learning on the fly. So as we learn, we like to introduce these concepts to our children. Yeah.
Thank you.
That's an amazing story. Yeah. So, was very intrigued in prior conversations about Texas Tech. So as we talked about, Patrick Mahomes isn't the only amazing thing that's come out of Texas Tech over the last 10 or 15, 20 years. Tell us a little bit about what it is to be part of the Texas Tech financial planning community.
Wow. We could take it the whole show. I won't.
We'll keep it quick. Yeah.
But no, for sure. I'll keep it very quick. Texas Tech has had just a profound impact on my life and many others too, and on our profession as well. Particularly, even with the financial planning programs that are across the country, you'll find most of the program directors are from the financial planning framework of the legacy program of Texas Tech. Some of the practitioners, some of our leading researchers that are even at private industry are from the web of Tech. It's kind of like a good coaching tree. Okay, whether it be basketball or football or something, where you have that one coach, you win the Super Bowl, and then they all, go be offensive coordinators or leading. It's kind of like that, and it's been like that for the last 30 years. I mean, we have great programs at University of Georgia, Utah Valley, K-State. And sorry if I'm mentioning that, because I know my friends are listening. But there's programs that are all over the country. Okay, Missouri, all of this. So Texas Tech has tentacles in all of those, and we've just the framework has just been replicated all over the country.
Okay, so give us some names. Give us some names of people who have Texas Tech somewhere tucked in their resume.
Wow, see, now I was trying to avoid that because there's so many.
That's all right. If they've been guests on our show, please tell us who they are.
Yes,
Wade Pfau, right? Wade Pfau has connections.
Wade has connections. Blanchette has connections. Sarah Acevedo. All of my there's several people from the financial therapy space. Like I said, University of Georgia, K-State. They're all sprinkled through there. They're all sprinkled through the Utah Valley. I mean, there's so many of people that are from the tech space. My friend Nathan Harness down there, Philip Gibson, he's over at Winthrop. Terrence Martin and John Moo Loving is down there. There's so many. I mean, that's why I didn't want to get into the whole name dropping thing, because they're just all over the place. There's just so many for our influencers, and they're just all over in different parts of the industry.
Well, Ramsey, you and I are kind of walking our way through this list of this web, right? What is it, Ramsey? It was interesting. We, in our company, we actually had a discussion talking about indices, right, in products, and sure enough, Ramsey is like, we're talking to Ramsey's group at another financial institution from years back, where you've touched. This was kind of, I guess, sort of third generation of a team, right, Ramsey, that you kind of created. Yeah. Preston, what is it about Texas Tech that has, and I see this in other, industries, other sectors. What is it special about Texas Tech that has either attracted, retained, or sort of cultivated financial, planning thought over the years? Is there any special sauce or secret sauce there?
I think that the thought of the why. I know that sounds cliche, and I'll shout out to Vicki Hampton, Dr. Vicki Hampton, and Gordon Hampton, her husband, and Vicki is a special mentor and friend of mine. Dr. Bill Gustafson, who is a legend in far as he's a cyclopedia of financial planning. They know the ties of the history of why financial planning as a profession was started from its inception. I mean, they know the old school folks that were in the room when this profession was started. I mean, way back when, and all that. Okay. Also, Dina Katz and Harold Ovinsky came to Texas Tech to teach, after they accomplished all they have accomplished. Okay. And they just did it out of the fiduciary and the heart of advancing people through the profession. See, this is what I'm talking about to get to your question, is that it was about advancing the profession. It's about access. It's about fiduciary. It's about serving the public. It's about advancing the research. It's about expanding the profession as a whole to the country, to programs, to to policy, to serving financial literacy, financial planning. All of this is now a public good. It's a public good for our health. And I think that from its inception, this is kind of what this started with the originators of financial planning way back. It's and started with that original group, made its way, and now it's just like, again, it's had its tentacles of now spreading across everywhere now.
Well, look, it's amazing, and I like the way you've characterized it as a public good, because the reality is financial illiteracy ends up costing everybody money in some form or another. So, yes. So we all have a vested interest in having a financially literate populace, here in the United States. So I want to let's narrow down a little bit on the areas that where you really made your mark. So one of the things that we had discussed is that you're very focused on the psychological elements and financial personality. So tell us a little bit about that. You talked about the 5 traits. I think it was 5 Ocean.
Yeah,
letters.
There's so many names now. Is it the Big 5? The Ocean
tell us about those, and tell us how that helps shape the planning process.
And tell us the why. Why you're focused on this. Yeah.
Well, I think that fate would have it. I think God had a little hand in that, and hand in a literal sense. So when I was in my research class, 4 years ago, we had to pick a topic as I was learning how to research. I came from the practitioner world, and when I started research late in life, so to speak, and I didn't know how to research, and I didn't know what that was. So at the beginning of it, and I was learning how to do it. My instructor was like, "Okay, pull your research topic out of a hat," and this is how we started. And she mixed it up, and I pulled mine out of a hat, and it said personality. And when she looked at me, she was like, "Oh, that's a good one actually for you." And so as fate would have it, I picked personality, particularly because I have one, I guess. So people tell me. So I picked that. We picked that one, and then I just got to. And there was already some there's so much research on personality, right? So it's just, and that's the thing about research. You're just trying to contribute to the literature. I mean, nobody invented it. You're just trying to contribute to the space, and then somebody else is going to contribute to it as well. So, and there's a line of research on personality traits and financial aspects. Okay, so how does it affect savings, income, net worth, and all this and all that. Okay, so the personality traits that's why they're called Ocean. It just takes the first letter. Openness to experience, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. Okay, so these are these domains. All right, and you don't have to be. There's not one that you are. There's just there's a level. You have higher levels of one. Okay, so and if you have higher levels of one. In certain situations, you may have higher levels of openness. Okay, it tells you something about how we, and unique ways. This is very key. Unique ways of how we think, how we behave, how we process information, how we make decisions, which is key, because we can make inferences. It's not necessarily causal, which is hard to prove, but it does give us inferences on how we do all the things that I just mentioned. So that's the beginning part of it.
Sure. So if you had customers, that or folks that you've advised that have, I'm just curious, like, if there was even a case study or an anecdote of somebody that was really strong in one of these areas versus somebody that was really strong in another one of these areas, and maybe how that impacted the way you advised one or the other. So
it's interesting. It's the more we know about our client. Remember the old school, like the what was it? KYC, know your client. It's
sure.
kind
of that's old school and new school.
Yeah. Well,
in fact, it's getting newer every day.
Right, but it's taking a different form because it's kind of like old school suitability, and we're still having that discussion now, right? Suitability was just, can you do it? Mm-hmm. Well, now with fiduciary is, should you do it? Okay, we're getting a little deeper. Know your client is like, okay, we just need to have these few things. Know your client now is I need more information. And that's where we get into this FinSci, financial psychology, money psychology. It's learning. It is where you get into assessments. It's like anxiety, where you get in transparency. We can assess things, money scripts, and so on and so forth. Okay, and personality is one of them. So if you take a personality test, it lets me and the advisors know your client a little bit more. So if I know a little bit more about your personality, okay, it shapes the conversation a little bit. All right. So for instance, extroversion is a little easier to have. And I'll get back on conscientiousness is one, and I'll get back to that in a minute. But extroversion, okay, we have personalities where you tend to earn higher incomes. Okay, research even says that we tend to earn higher incomes. Okay, but that said, tend to be a little bit more impulse spenders as well. Okay, so how does that shape the conversation? Well, that says, okay, well, you earn a lot, but you necessarily may not know where that money is going, or you may not have the discipline to say, okay, we need to place this money and discipline this money into our goals. Okay, and that may conflict with someone who's a little bit more disciplined, which is a trait inside of conscientiousness, and maybe that's a spousal conversation. Now we start getting into dynamics of, relational. Okay. So yeah, Paul, see that little giggle right there?
Oh,
right.
Yes. We save, Preston, we save a lot of money at my house at sales and things. Yes.
And Paul, don't go there.
And see, households are family systems. There's household bargaining, at the table. That's theoretically sound as well. So when we know more about this, then we get those discussions. See, Paul, that giggle right there. Then I would sit back as an advisor at this point and say, okay, Paul, tell me a little bit more about that giggle. Have y'all had these discussions before? How do you handle these situations? How are those savings discussions going? And then you see that, Paul, that's pause. I did that on purpose, but I give it a little bit more since we're on a podcast. I kind of interjected.
I think this is another podcast. We'll have a therapy session.
Right, but since we're on a podcast, I didn't want dead silence on the radio. But the point about that is because we had a tool to unlock the conversation, and that giggle right there, I'd interject because Ramsey, you asked me, how does this go and what does this contribute to? That giggle right there, that's what we're looking for. Because we have a tool, we look for something like that to unlock it. A giggle right there, have a question and have a pause.
So you're looking for the visceral reaction. You're having all these things, and when you see somebody do one of these,
yeah.
I guess this is audio, so people can't see my physical reaction here. But you're looking for some sort of right? You're looking for a tell, really, right? It's almost like poker, right?
Right. Well, yeah. Well, you're unlocking and ushering. Okay.
Yeah.
You're ushering a conversation so that because this is where we can help as advisors, okay, as planners. This is the value. You see all the studies, right, that come out as, okay, how can you have that that advisor value. Where's the future going into? Skate where the puck is going, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Where can we add that value? And it's in the behavioral aspects. It's in the coaching, it's in the counseling, it's in these conversations. And this is where something like personality can have it. To pivot a little bit further, something like conscientiousness is very is a domain that's really telling, because it has. Let's kind of go back a little bit. The traits themselves are the traits. Then you have characteristics of the traits. Then you have adjectives describing the traits. All right, and this is 80 years of like factoring down words into about 40 words. And now this came down from 80,000 to 14,000 to getting down to a couple of thousand to 80 to what I just described: traits, characteristics, and adjectives, right? And when you get into the characteristics of conscientiousness, you have things like competence, dutifulness, achievement striving, self-discipline. All right, you have organized. All right, not lazy, not impulsive. So when you hear things like not impulsive, that's risk averse. When you have things like competence, understanding. When you have things like self-discipline, okay, that means you're going to probably adhere to a plan. Okay, so these are things that if you're in a category, or if you have higher levels of conscientiousness, okay, that's more susceptible to being responsive to recommendations or a plan or following or something like that. So that conversation is going to be a little bit more different. You see?
Yeah. So it's interesting. It reminds me of a couple things. So we had Curtis Cloak on here maybe a month or so ago, and he said what he tries to do is figure out whether or not people are coachable. And if they're not coachable, he kind of moves on. If they are coachable, he goes with them. So as I'm listening to this ocean analysis, at first I thought, okay, it's a given that like this is a client and I'm using this to figure out like how best to talk to a client, advise them. But the more you talk about it, I realize at the end of the day, it's sort of like a client screening tool. Like, so if I go through this ocean analysis and somebody's like, what N is that neuroticism? Is that what it is?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So if I go through and like, a client is a high N, is that a client? Is that a client I just don't work with? Like, tell me about that. Like, let's talk about like that one in particular. Cause like, where is that particular
yes.
piece of this a positive? It feels like a screen for like, maybe this isn't, business I want to do.
Right, and it's not, and it's screens. Is
that too harsh?
Yeah, a little harsh, because it's a screen is one thing. It's more, again, it's more of a assessment. It's data gathering, because that is a part in the financial planning process. We're understanding. We're understanding who we're trying to serve. Just because someone is in a quote unquote neuroticism area, and actually there's a big large firm that really uses the trait assessment, a global firm, I'll leave them unnamed, that uses this as a tool. And actually RIA firms across the country, they select a tool, whatever it may be used. You don't have to assess your client to death, because you can't assess your client to death. Nobody wants to be assessed.
Sure.
I mean, because you'll have a lot of work to do, and it already takes work for a client to engage with their money and talk about their money anyway. If you assess your client to death, they're going to be like, oh, okay, see, this is the very reason why we didn't want to get into it in the first place, and they quit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you had to select a couple of tools, okay, that they want to get, whether it be personality, whether it be anxiety, whether it be this or that. So getting back to your question about the neuroticism, all right, there's just certain things that maybe a neuroticism person may have. They may be suffering from potential self-destructive behaviors. Research tends to show us maybe self-doubt, maybe engaging into a potential. This is just all potential. What, and particularly research into the domain itself. For particularly the famous authors, Costa McCrae, they say, okay, maybe gambling, maybe addiction, maybe depression, maybe something. It may be just somebody's just inwardly concentrating on themselves. Okay, that may be a characteristic of themselves and not really caring about others. Okay, so we just that this may have to be addressed. That may be a barrier for them not accomplishing their goals. It may be in conflict. They may say, okay, well, I have these goals. These are my aspirations of what I want to do with my money. Yet these are these things that are holding them back. Let's discuss.
Yeah.
And that has to be addressed in an empathetic way. That doesn't mean I don't want to work with that client. That just means that I have to meet them where they are and discuss that in an empathetic way, so we can help them get where they want to go. Yeah,
and just a twist on the question Ramsey asked you. So say we are in a firm, and we're partners. We've got two other people. We've all done our personality maps. That client that Ramsey identifies walks in the door, or another personality. Is there a personality of an advisor that matches with the personality of a client? Is it like for like, or is it, in a perfect world, would you match somebody who's got, very complementary skills or personality that matches different but matches well with this person?
So, great question, Paul. So there's just different type of personality assessments. And so you'll find the employer and the personality match type of assessments, right? Is like, okay, what type of employee will match this type of, employer philosophy, where you're trying to match people together. All right. And there's certain types like the Myers-Briggs, and I think there's another one out there that just came out too. I forgot which one is off the top of my head that's supposed to be better, so to speak, than that one. But I forgot which one. So they're used for different things. So what I'm saying is there's different assessments used for different objectives. Okay, the big five or the ocean traits are used for like assessing the individual. Okay, so to answer your question, that's not really what this is used for. But I see where you're going with that. That would be useful. That would be useful, and I haven't gotten that far yet. But that would be useful to see to kind of pair up someone like that. But yeah, I haven't taken that far.
So all right. So then I guess my question is: client walks in the door, right? And I'm trying to figure out like what are the traits that would make a coachable or a client that would be one that would be amenable. And so as I look at these, I'm thinking openness, conscientiousness, and agreeableness. Like feel like those are the three traits that that are most valuable. And extroversion can be good, but as you said, like that can come with success and also sort of like maybe sort of spending habits. Neuroticism, I can't get my arms around whether or not when that would be good. So like and I know I'm sort of dwelling on this. I'm beating this dead horse, right, on client selection. But it seems to me like if a client has those three traits, like OCA, I'll call them, like that's a client that relative to hours you will spend, is more likely to be amenable to working with a financial planner. Is that am I inferring too much, or I'm just I had this moment with the professor, so I'm trying to learn as much as possible.
Right. Well, here I'll tie both of your questions together too. Yeah. I'll tie both of your questions together. What's key is for the advisor to be trained, so to speak, or be molded empathetically to be well-rounded and engaging with people in conversationally, listening, being able to navigate emotion and behavior, transcribing different situations to where you're well-rounded in these situations, and that is the key. This is where we're trying to go, okay? And if you're shaped in this way, then we won't have to get into the OCA or the, hey, let's match each other up. Okay. It's more of a, you see what I'm saying there?
Sure.
So that's the importance. That's the importance. Yeah. However, so let's go back to what you were saying, Ramsey. Okay, so it's learning where people are and meeting them there rather than screening and say I don't want to work, with folks. It's like, okay, now I know where you are, Mr. and Mrs. Client. Okay, I've learned these things about you. Okay, now we can better serve. Okay, this is what this is what this is about. When I say this, learning more, understanding more, empathizing more, having a different approach, so we can help them get with them where they go. Because the more we know, the more we can get them to go where they need to go. So as far as open, let's say the O, for example, right? Openness to experience. See, this is an interesting one because they tend to have a lot of fantasy, open-mindedness, right? So they have a lot of imagination. And there's a study where people have a problem or an issue connecting with their future self. Okay, they figure that their future self is a total stranger. So this is a time discounting type of thing. Okay, so now I'm getting a little nerdy here. But if people can't connect with their future self, okay, then we have a saving mechanism issue, right? We have a planning mechanism issue. So the more we understand this, now if that means if somebody resides in the openness category, that can go two ways. All right. Let's say so if somebody has imagination, they could or could not connect with their future self. We have to understand that more, but we have to unpack that a little. I
over-index the O. So I over-index the O. So I'm taking the O off.
Yeah. No, but that's good.
Now we're down to C and A, man.
Yeah, so but openness also could mean they're open to hey, listen, I'd like to hear more about this plan. Okay, sure. Because I'm open because what we're doing is not working. Meaning that what's working in the household is not working. Mr. and Mr. Advisor, what you suggested to us, I'm open to that. So let's listen to that. Okay. So these are the things that we're dealing with.
Okay, Dr. Cherry, you've sold me. I've been in practice for 10, 15 years. You know what? I knew it, and you've told me, and you've connected. You've just connected me with something I intuitively knew. How do we get good at this? How do I learn? How do I, what are the resources out there for me to really embrace, personality in my practice and how I advise clients?
Right. So there's actually you can actually take an assessment. There's different assessments. There's one built into some scales, and I built one into my website. It's hidden. I actually use some psychology scales, and then it's embedded into my website to where after I've had the data gathering or the discovery meeting, right, then I give tasks. There's actually research that says, though, you don't want to give homework because homework sounds like a bad word, right? So you give tasks. There's research on everything. But anyway, actually somebody told me about that. Actually, one of my good friends, Derek Lawson, I said, oh, we're going to give the clients homework. And he said, no, Preston. He said, no, there's research on that. Don't do the homework thing, So shout out to Derek. But
that's what I get. But yeah, Preston, that's what I get when I go home. Tasks.
Right. But there's scales that you can build, in your website. There's also people that offer, when I say people, I mean businesses that or services, I guess you could say, that say you can attach this onto your practice. All right. I won't name any names, so we won't endorse anybody, but I'm just saying that you can attach these services onto your business, or you can build them yourselves. You can find scales that are embedded into what you call big data sets, so or research papers. You can say, okay, financial health scale, transparency scale, personality scale, financial well-being scale, all these scales. And then you can have your website builder build them and then give proper attribution to them when you do use them. Okay. Yeah, that's key. All right. So you could do that and use them as conversation releasers, so to speak. because I actually do have a money psychology a session in my practice. And there's practices that do this. I'm not reinventing the wheel here. It's just not on a large scale, Paul and Ramsey. It's not on a large scale that everybody's doing this. But it's not like it's unknown either. So I'm not some sort of but because I've learned from. I will shout out to people like Rick Kaler, Sandra Davis, Yeski Bowie. There's a whole bunch of people that do this. Shout out to my Lizetta Redding Braxton, a whole bunch of people. I think y'all had Lizetta. Y'all need to get Lizetta on the show. She's a great, fabulous person.
We haven't, so we will put her on our target list for guests. Thank you for sharing with us.
Yes. Shout out to Lizetta. So, but my point about this is that the people that get this, is key. And I have this built into right after I do the discovery session, I give the tasks of here, do this homework, so to speak, and then we have a session where we have a dedicated session where we're discussing this, which influences everything that we do after that. It ties the glue into everything. And I'm talking about not only the recommendations that we make, but the implementation. It increases the implementation. It increases the likelihood that the client is going to stay with you long term. And it also increases the retention of intergenerational client retention, because we know that intergenerational advisor, the client leaving, that happens a lot. But if you introduce tools and mechanisms to where you're having households talk to each other intergenerationally, then that's succession planning right there, folks. But it all stems from these conversations.
Okay, well, this is fascinating. Ramsey, we're sort of at the top of the half hour here. We could go for quite a while, or I would. I want to continue the session. I want to have you map out me. Dr. Cherry, this is great. Ramsey, what final questions, thoughts here?
So yeah, well, I think that it was really actually helpful for me to sort of think about all the things you could do with that with the ocean framework. So part of it is, okay, am I trying to figure out how to communicate and work with this given client, and I'm sort of taking it as a given that they're going to be my client come what may. Or, again, sort of going off of some of the things what Paul said, you might ultimately, if you kind of know where you are as an advisor and you can kind of identify which clients you're most successful with, I think that's an interesting possibility as well. And maybe somebody with a different sort of subset of the letters should be advised by somebody you can refer them to. But I think sort of measuring these psychological traits is so important in this space, and so for me that was very very helpful conversation. So thank you for that. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, well, I appreciate it, and it's people are using it. Like I said, there's a large firm, a wealth management firm that we all know that's actually using this as part of their process too. So.
Well, Dr. Cherry, thanks for joining us. I know you've got a couple of papers that are in the hopper that will be published shortly. What's the best way for people to follow you, stay in touch, and see the work that you have done and will do?
Oh, sure. So yes. Oh, yeah. My research agenda is pretty much set for the next couple of years. But you can follow me on social media at Dr. Preston Cherry at Twitter, on IG and LinkedIn, and so those are my major pages, and also at concurrentfp.com.
Okay, great. We'll put those links in the show notes. So click, just click in there, and we'll make it easy to follow. Ramsey, thank you. Dr. Cherry, thank you, and thanks to all our listeners. And tune in again next week for another episode of That Annuity Show.
All right, thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening. If you've enjoyed the show, please rate and recommend us on iTunes, Stitcher, Overcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also get more information at thatannuityshow.com.